All right, citizens one and all, welcome back. We're back with part four, and my buddy Marcus. How's it going, Marcus?
Good, Ginger. It's going good.
Good to hear. So, what we're going to talk about today is a little bit on the PvP. We got into it with one guy a few times, but with this alpha test, they did request that the PvP was, not a huge focal point. They didn't want people spawn camping. They didn't want a lot of like ganking, troll killing type stuff going on. So we did get into it with one guy a few times. I'm not sure why. We had some good back and forth, and he was a dwarf. And as Marcus always says,
Never trust a dwarf.
seriously. So I feel like the system as a whole with the death penalties is a bit intense. And I think that the devs with time will learn that this system is just not overall something that people find fun. There's a lot of death penalty. There's like a experience debt and things of that nature. Stuff that just doesn't make the game fun. And when you're in a situation where you don't necessarily want to PvP and you just get killed anyways, and then you wind up with all these debuffs because someone ganked you and you couldn't do anything about it, uh, people are not going to like it. So, getting into it, there's the experience debt, skill and stat dampening. It lowers your health and mana, it lowers gear proficiency, it can reduce the drop rates, and there's durability loss. That's a lot of shit. Especially if you're just out minding your own business, picking flowers, and somebody comes by and drops a meteor on your head. It's probably going to drive you nuts. So my initial impression is it's not the best system ever, but there are some caveats to it. Corruption, for example, we'll go and read about that. And corruption is a red player. So player corruption, if a combatant is purple and kills a non-combatant green in PvP, they will be flagged as corrupt or red. A player's corruption score increases with each non-combatant player killed. And then it goes on to have a quote here from Steven saying, reward without risk is meaningless. Corruption is just another word for risk. So the wider the level disparity between the players, the more the corruption will be gained. Corruption penalties occur as the corruption is gained. The higher the corruption score, the more skill and stat dampening applies, etc. until the corrupt player ultimately becomes ineffective in combat. It only applies in PvP combat. I'm going to read this quote here because it's a good one. And this is the flip side to maybe not liking it as much as like somebody that doesn't want to PvP. If you PvP too much and you troll kill and gank too much, this is what happens. So if you go on a murder spree and you have 10 player kills under your belt, then you might start feeling a significant dampening to your skill effects against other players. I don't want to give necessarily a number or curve for players to extrapolate prior to us having the ability to actually test these ideas. So this is really just ad lib an idea at this point. But I would say, what is the intent behind that dampening? The intent isn't to limit the fun for the player. The intent is to provide a give and take, a risk versus a reward, and the risk continuing down the road of accruing corruption is not only the loss of your gear and amplified death effect, but also your ability to perform in the activity. So that is like, this is more of a defense against troll killing. So I don't know if I would classify this as risk versus reward. I mean, if you're going in PvP and killing people that are your level and taking their loot because like maybe it's a max level, you've watched him for a few days, you know his farming routine, and you go and kill this player at the end of his farming run, and you take all the stuff he just farmed, but you're the same level, you'll still get corrupt. But that's a good risk versus reward versus the skill dampening, which occurs when there seems like there's a bigger the level disparity between players, the more corruption will be gained. So it's good protection against ganking. I don't think it should dampen if the person's the same level as you. But what do you think, Marcus?
Yeah, the whole player corruption thing. I One thing we learned too is just because someone is corrupted like that and they're purple, if they attack you, you can attack them back and you're fine. But if I go and attack them, I turned purple right away. I had to wait for him to hit me first.
Yeah, yeah, that's another thing too. So if we had not attacked him at all and let him just kill us as green players, he would have turned red instead of purple. Purple in this case means that he's just a combatant. So we were both combatants there, but since we were similar level, there was really no corruption, or I don't even know if the corruption was turned on for this phase of alpha. But very interesting. I think there's a lot of work to be done with the PvP. I think that the system as a whole is maybe not where it needs to be, and I think they're going to be doing a lot of revisiting on how that system works. But as far as the back and forth, like the combat itself, Marcus, we killed that guy a few times. He killed us a few times. What did you think of the flow of it?
It was decent once I got used to it a little bit. The controls are a little different than I'm used to, but once I got a hang of it, it flowed fairly well. I'll say fairly well.
Yeah. Okay, here's a corrupted player in Alpha 1. That's cool. There's another quote here that says, when you gain the corruption, you have the potential of losing your completed items, your weapon, your armor, and stuff that is very difficult to achieve. Then the other aspect of that is that in order to deter basically players taking alternate characters and saying, this is my PK alt, the more players you kill, the more corruption you gain, the higher your combat efficiency in PvP diminishes. If you're out there and you kill 20 players, you will not be able to perform in PvP any longer. You'll need to take that character and go work off that corruption. The other aspect of corruption is that if you kill another player who is a non-combatant and the level of disparity between you, the player is great, will gain a higher amount of corruption from killing them to the point where you should not be killing a one player. So I don't like that either. I don't think you should drop your gear. I don't mind dropping your inventory of random farm shit, but if you're dropping your hard-earned gear, I think that's a bit too much, and I think that's not something people are ever going to like, ever. So I guess we'll see how that goes. So if you die, that removes a significant portion of the corruption too. Yeah, there's a lot that's going to go into that system, but hopefully it goes places. Overall, I'll say personally, like the PvP that we experienced was very smooth, very fluid. Definitely reminded me of Guild Wars or WoW, like arena style stuff. So I had fun with it. And I think in the long run, they'll come to realize that they need a more fair and balanced system that does not penalize as heavily as what they're envisioning currently. Which, not to say that what they're envisioning is wrong, it's just to say that most people don't want what they think they want. And they being the devs and us being the players do not really want what the devs want. So we'll see. Any final thoughts on that one, Marcus?
I guess what I would like to see them do is say if you're at whatever level it would be, but say maybe just pulling a number out of the air, your first 5 levels, maybe you're immune to PvP. Maybe they can't, nobody can attack you for at least till you get a hang of the game.
That would be cool. Something like that. I've seen that in other games too.
And Ginger, if you don't mind, I'd just like to clarify my earlier comment. Never
Yes,
trust a dwarf in MMOs.
very true. Very good clarification. I don't disagree. But we're gonna wrap it up there, guys. We're keeping these short on purpose, keep them easy to listen to. And I wish I had footage to show, but we really didn't have anything, so we've just been scrolling through the wiki. So thank you all for listening. This is the final part of our alpha experience. So on that note, I'll bid y'all a good night and enjoy Ashes of Creation.